Sabrina's here. She doesn't trust us. Sabrina doesn't trust us.
Wow. Yeah, that's it. It's totally it.
Hey, everyone. Thanks for joining. Give everyone a couple minutes to filter in here. We don't have any pre-submitted questions today. My name is Will. I'll be running Lunch and Learn today. I run our customer organization. Let us know what questions you have. You can use the raise hand feature, ask it in QA, or ask it in chat. Hey, got a couple more people joining. Hey, thanks everyone for joining. Don't have any pre-submitted questions today. Don't have any questions asked so far. So if you got a question, use the chat. Just raise your hand or ask in the Q&A. Any or all of the above are available. It's Will here today. So hey, go ahead, Manal. What do you got?
Hi, good morning. I think good afternoon, sorry. Quick question. Sorry, let me do this. I am working on a workflow and I have like 5 forms, but they're kind of like wizard format. And the 4 other forms have a choice of save for later. Is there any way like I can show you? Because I know it's kind of hard to explain it, but I have like 4 separate forms.
Yeah, let me, I'll have to make you a panelist. So bear with me just a moment. You'll get booted out and join back in here.
Gotcha, thank you.
So Manal, if you, as you join back as a panelist, if you want to go ahead and just get a screen share going.
Awesome, can you see my screen?
I can, yep.
Okay, so right here, I have one form, which is like a general info where user kind of chooses which form they want to go in.
Right,
So,
right.
And then if they choose purchase, there's like a 4 rules that check, okay, if it's purchase, travel, whichever form they want to choose. And they all have the save for later option. As you can tell, like I have paths for each of them. I'm getting confused to, do I have to create like 5 process folders separate and then 5 separate paths? Because in the previous forms, when I had like a save for later option, I would have like a separate path for save for later, and then I assign a task, and then the submit is separate. But since I have 4 forms with like 4 separate save for laters, is there like an easier way to do it rather than creating like 4, like I'm creating here 1 for one form, the save for later path, and I'm gonna create another one? It just doesn't make like, is there anything easier that I could do?
So these forms on the top here, these are all in session forms?
Yes, they are all in sessions. And once the user hits save for later, then I go through it and then I assign them the form so they can come back to it and like do whatever they want and submit it back.
So, and you need them to be able to start at any, at the form that they actually stopped on?
Yes, so all the data should be saved, whatever they put it in.
You definitely don't need to set up multiple process folders for this. Like, you would want all of your, it'd be fine, I guess, if all of your save paths went to the setup process folder step. Though arguably you could have everything just route to one setup process folder. instead of needing two in the same flow. But so if you're on travel form and you want to exit, it's an in session form.
Yeah, because I thought I could do that, but then I'm confused on how to assign a form each single time, like how I did it here. So this is just the one form and I'm assigning them.
Well, you could assign it to the current user. And you can make an assignment form show up like an in-session form. But basically, like if you have an outcome path of a form that can loop back on itself and that form is assigned, you've effectively allowed a user to restore at that point. Likely though, is there like a point? I guess the problem with, so you can set up an assigned form so it automatically renders to your user and they won't actually know that it's assigned in any way. It'll appear like an in-session form. The difficulty is you can't move an in-session form to an assigned form later. So one option could be that you might make all of these forms maybe after the general info form, like you actually get them to start the process. So maybe purchasing onward, you could make those assigned and you could get the assignment to be the current user. And if you have reuse assignment set to true, which is a property on the assignment, you could allow a user to just restart at the form that they left off on. But you'd have to refactor this flow. Like maybe general info would go to setup process folder, would then go to the purchasing form, and purchasing in all the other forms, excluding your, looks like you have end forms there. Yes. Excluding your end forms, would be assigned forms, and your save path would just loop back. You'd go to like a create data or some other step, and it would loop back on itself. And that way you could save your work and restart at the form. Does that make sense what I'm saying?
Yes, but then so what my business users want, it's when the form only gets assigned to them when they click on save for later button.
Yeah.
So it's like I was thinking to take them all to one process folder, but then I'm like, so, or should I like create like a bunch of different rules to check that, oh, what's the save for later for the purchase, travel, and then it like assigns separate forms. It was just becoming, it's just so, I feel like my flow is so messy too. It's just like, it's kind of hard to figure out like which one is the best way, because I don't want to create separate process folders like 8 times and then have to map them.
Yeah, you don't need to do that. You should only have really one set of process folders step in your flow. Like even in your other design that's working, that's much cleaner. Likely you don't need a second one. You could have your flow mapped to it on the save for later behavior. So I'm guessing they're both exactly the same, right?
No, this is like my previous form. This is like a completely different form, and this was a completely different flow that I worked on another project. Because this is like what my business user is asking me to do, where as soon as it clicks save for later, it should do the same thing how it is doing here. Yeah,
I think here, let me take over. If you want to, I'm going to move you back to a panelist here, and then I'll give you, let me see if I can walk through an idea and then we can chat about it. So I'm going to move you back and then unmute you here.
Awesome.
Oops, ready to go. Right, so let me just make a folder for myself here. And am I sharing my screen? Of course I'm not. Let me share my screen again. Right, designer project. What's today? 8. Right, 8.8, and then there's no graceful, I mean, there is really no graceful way to do this if you have to wait for it to be assigned. But let's see here. Let's see if we can't find the easiest option. It's definitely, you don't need multiple process folders. We might want to talk about why, what it is that's making you think that you do. So I'm gonna build a form here. Really ugly, simple form. Just a label and a text box. So this is my first form. So let's assume this is a form. This is my form, right? Let me actually come in here. I need to add a second button, right? Which is save for later. Now, I want to have a series of these forms so that a user can quickly complete them all in order, right? And this is kind of what you've got here, where you've got on our normal outcome path, we just go in session form to in session form. And then eventually, at some point, you're going to hit your setup process folder step and set your process folder up and kick off all of the assignments and stuff, right?
Yes.
Okay. And so these are all in session forms. So one option you could have is to have your form on save for later go to itself, right? And then you might have to do some visibility work, like, and then have or have something like this, right? And if I edited this form, I could come to save for later, come to behavior, and I could change the initially visible to a from flow data and name this show the, show save button. Now, one of the things this gives me is on my form, I could say show save button constant true. And here I could say show save button constant false. And then I could turn this into an assigned form. But here I'd have to assign it to the user that's completing the flow. So I'd go to assignment setup, accounts and groups, build array, select from flow, and I'd have to say flow data, current user email. Now I can assign this to the user that is really it's the user submitting this form here. And of course, you'd give it some meaningful assignment action name, an assignment name, which I'll just put some garbage text in. But here, if I were to run this design, here's my flow. I do this and I click save for later. And now I'm on the same form without a save for later button. Now, of course, I can map my data in, which might be helpful. Came here and I said the value of text box 1 is, oh, hold on. Let me fix something here. Text box 1 needs to be optional for my save for later outcome path. And then here, text box 1, select from flow will be text box 1. So again, so if I run that, wait, what? Is it changing the value? Why is it doing that by default? I don't know if I like that. I could run this, I could enter some garbage text, I could save for later and I have an assigned form that'll take that data for me and allow me to submit it into my next form. And that way I can continue on. That's one way. The problem with this approach, though, is your setup process folder is here. And so you're going to have these assignments that aren't a part of the actual process folder. And maybe that's okay. Like maybe you don't want them to show up. If you do need them, if you do need like this assigned form here to show up in the process folder, then you need to move your setup process folder earlier. But you don't want it to be before at least the first form step. And so that might give you some kind of on the design. You might have to do something like check to see if there's a persistent folder or not. You can do that by using like the is empty. Now every time it would be something like, let me clean up some of these lines. So every time you'd set up your process folder here, like after your first form, and then you'd have to do something like this probably. Well, in fact, you might actually, I was telling you not to have two, you might have two. Maybe you do it on each path here. Maybe that's a simpler approach. Since you can only hit one of these, it shouldn't be a problem. You shouldn't be able to hit multiple of them. And if you do, it's probably not behaving in a way you think. But then it does, I mean, it won't be ideal, but basically you continue this pattern, right, of doing your save for later. So you might bring this to loop down here and save for later here. You would ignore your save for later outcome path and do your buttons. So you get something like that. That's an option. Anyone else on the panelist call have any other ideas? I don't love this idea, but it will work.
Quick question. So if I have like multiple rules, since I have like 4 different forms that a user can choose, so they are completely like separate assignments from each of them. If I do set up a process folder in just the one first form, how would I map the other values in it? Because I tried doing that and it only shows me the values from that first form. The mapping stuff only shows for the only one form that I'm connecting with it.
So like your process folder, you have a flow execution extension. It has some extension data you've created.
Yes.
And each form only fills out some of the fields.
And they're all like set up, but then if I connect them all together, well, yeah, I mean, I think I'm confusing it on myself. It's just like I have a bunch of different rules. So it's not like they're always going to have the same forms. It's just whichever form they choose. So should I have like, since I have general info that doesn't have any save for later, I should have a process folder right after that. And then they just do the save for later, like how you have it, but just right after the first form.
Could you ask that question one more time? Like, I'm sorry.
Oh no, it's okay. For example, you have the first form, but you also have a save for later. But my first form just have next or cancel. So I should have a process folder set up right after that first form, because that's where I'm like triggering to the other forms. And then I have rules. If purchase, then they do purchase. So
right.
It's just I'm getting confused between where should I place my process folders for save for later and submit.
I think it would be after your very first in session form. So let's assume actually this pattern doesn't, maybe there is no example for this. Oh, actually, let me undo that. I think your pattern would be more like this. No, this is okay. Like here, this is your like main, this is your this is your initial form, right? Whatever, like you, the thing is you don't want a user, like you want to be able to have a user run this and say, oh, you know what? I wasn't ready to submit this or whatever. I don't want to actually save any data. You might want them to back away from this. So you leave this as an in session form. And so likely what you have is something closer to this because you have your very first form. You might have something like this. And again, like, I don't know if all these are probably individual forms, right? But here I'm just using this show save button, like visibility trigger to let me hide and show that particular outcome path. So initial form runs, your user says, I'm doing X or Y. And then they go to your first process. Right. And then here, they need to, they decide they want to save later. So you actually set up a process folder and then, well, I guess the problem is what if they only do
this, the second one or the third one?
No, that's okay. You could use, probably what you do is just update your data. So what I would do is this. Let me modify my design here. This is about to get is more closer in terms of confusing outcome paths as yours might be today. But let's see what we could do here. You just try to get this organized a bit more. Okay, and then I'm just going to do some. Going to throw a catch exception step here just to kind of clean up some of these. Oh, not a catch, throw, excuse me. Clean up some of these lines. This is clean as we can keep it. Because we know some of these they won't be able to use here. So on the initial form, a user can say we're gonna set up a process folder, right? What is that? No, go there. Yes. And you can use save steps after each form to update your process folder data instead of using process folder data. So if I come, let me actually save this, and let me create an execution extension here really quickly. Execution extension 1, and I'll just give this 2 properties, str1, str2. Okay. And now here on my flow, I'm going to use process data. I'm going to find my extension data here, and I might actually use build data, and I might pass in some values. But I can also just use a save entities step here instead of a process folder. And so on every save for later, but I can come to save entities. I can select my type, which is execution extension. Execution extension 1. And then I can pass in my extension data. And so here, let's say text box 1 is string 1. I can make its change value the extension data string 1. And so now on each save for later, or even on the button path that comes, I can have a save entity step be updating my process data as it moves along the path instead of needing multiple process folders. And in this way, I have one process folder, but if I were to copy this same approach, right, and bring this over here, but every time I'm using save for later, I'm persisting that data into the database and allowing a user to return to the flow at a later date by going to their inbox or some custom report that we're building for them.
Gotcha. Thank you so much. This helps.
This makes sense.
Yes,
okay.
It does. It definitely does.
This should be a lot easier. The difficulty is that you can't just switch an in session form to an assigned form. But hopefully, anyways, hopefully this helps a bit.
Yes, it does a lot. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Yeah, you bet. I'm happy to help. Okay, we got a question here in the chat. Oh, let's copy. There we go. All right, so Jeremy wants to know, what is the external system account used for? The external system user account is really used for 2 things: the wait on external system and external forms. Just make here. Jeremy, if you'd like to, I can. I just unmuted you if you'd like. But there's 2 accounts. It's kind of just a special account to manage some assignment type stuff that might not be assigned to a user, but needs to be assigned to system. And so if I search for wait on external system, or if I search for external form, both of these accounts have some concept of integrating with a separate system. Wait on external system lets me pause like an assigned form and then have a variety of ways in which to continue on. And we've got some good docs. If we just search for wait on our doc site, you'll find wait on external system that walks you through some of the particulars of this step. And then external form allows you to actually treat, allows you to, instead of using decisions built forms, allows you to redirect a user session to like an external site of some sort. So if you have like a custom web page that you want a user, we have like a customer in lending who's built like a kiosk application, and then basically they can redirect a user session at starts and decisions to one of the like login pages for one of the main like loan providers, like Wells Fargo or whoever else it might be. And so this external form lets them do that. But it's just the user context that controls these two, these kind of external interaction steps. You don't need to use it for anything, and arguably shouldn't use it for anything. But we just created an account, which is not the system account, the external system account, to be able to manage the assignments and stuff for these types of these particular steps. Questions about that? Wasn't a great explanation.
Yes, I understand the explanation. The reason why I actually asked this is because this account was actually noted by one of the system auditors. So they were just asking us why there is such an account inside decisions that says external systems, and then nobody is using that that account. So one of their questions is it possible for us to remove it? Will there be any implications if we remove these accounts?
I would say no, you shouldn't remove it. How do I get it? Do I have to actually do something to get it to show up?
Yeah, actually, this is another one question that they're asked me, because they saw this account going inside the groups, accessing the all users group. And then it's one of the user external systems. And then when they go inside the accounts, they're not able to see this account.
Yeah, that's interesting. I don't know why it doesn't show. It is kind of a hidden account. I would say there are likely problems that could occur, but you can deactivate it and make sure that you could deselect these 3 checkboxes so that it's not able to be used in any way.
Okay,
sure. I would not delete it, but that does beg the question of why we don't show it in the default report. So let me see here. If I look at our report, it's for current folder. If I get rid of current folder, there's external system. Interesting. And if I add entity folder ID, it doesn't live in a folder anywhere. It's just kind of like a ghost account. So this is why it doesn't show. It's because it's not in the accounts folder, which it probably should be. But it's kind of its job is to manage the assignments for these kind of particular steps. But it should be safe to deactivate it and do these other actions. But I would not delete it, because at some point you would need to use one of these steps, and then it's going to be a nightmare to try to figure out why it's not working, and then neither one of us will remember that you deleted it ages ago.
Yeah, correct. Is there anywhere in the documentation websites that actually explains all these accounts? Why it's used and where is it used?
No, I bet not. I will get a ticket in for that, and get someone to write that up for you. That's we should have a doc for that. No, but really quickly, since we're here, and we're talking about it, you've got your default admin account. Guest lets you expose flows to be consumed without authentication. Process mining is new. This is related to version 8 specifically in our new process mining utility. And then system is just a normal system account that runs all your backend processes.
So all these accounts were actually created upon installation, correct?
Yes, these are all default accounts. That's correct.
Yeah, because our system auditors is quite, they're quite strict of maintaining all the accounts that no actual user is holding. So they were actually asking us whether is it safe to remove all these predefined accounts during the installation?
Definitely not. You cannot remove this account. You could likely remove this account if you're not using process mining on V8. Guest account is safe to remove, maybe, but is set to inactive. So maybe, does the auditor know about active versus inactive? Because you don't have
Yes.
to, but that they're saying that that's not sufficient for them.
Yeah, actually, they really wanted to remove fully these accounts.
So why don't I do this? Why don't we ask support to see if we can successfully run with the guest account and the external system account deleted?
Mm.
Caitlin, would you submit a ticket into support on behalf of, do you pronounce your name? I'm so sorry.
Yeah, Jeremy.
Oh, Jeremy. Yeah, Caitlin, would you submit a ticket in support for Jeremy, asking if we can safely delete the guest and the external system account? We cannot delete the normal system account, Jeremy. I know that with certainty.
Okay, sure. Maybe we just need some documentations or some write-ups that will actually justify on the reason why we cannot delete this. Yeah, because
Yeah, and we
we
can give you
really figured
those.
out. Yeah,
We can give you those
sure.
as well for whatever sort of exception your security team
Yeah.
can make.
Yeah, that will be great. Yeah, by the way, I already raised a ticket regarding this system account, so I'm just waiting for support to provide me those.
Oh, okay, great,
Yeah,
wonderful.
because I really need an answer. That's why I also attended your session this lunch.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Sorry, I couldn't give you any more information. We just use accounts for back end processing for certain behaviors.
Yep, sure. That one is understandable. We just really need some justification coming from the software principal regarding this, just to satisfy our system auditors.
No, understand.
Yeah. So I have another inquiry if we
Sure.
have still time. Because currently the version of decisions that we have is on version 6. And then we created a lot of reports using that version. So we realized that I'm not sure whether this is a system bug because we use a date range filter. And one of my user is actually using the last quarter filter.
Okay.
And then she was unable to retrieve. Okay, say for example, the last quarter she ran and then she ran today. The last quarter date should be actually from 1st of April until the 30th of June. So after running that report, selecting the last quarter option on the filter, the report will only provide him up to 29th of June. The 30th of June is not included. So I'm not sure whether it is a bug or there's some system settings that we have to configure for the 30th of June to appear.
What version are you running right now?
Currently, we're running on version 6.
Okay. There has definitely been some improvements around the date range filter that we've been making in version 7 and version 8 for some customers that have been hitting something very similar to what you're reporting.
Okay. So
Or
yeah,
that the date range filters were excluding dates incorrectly. Like the last day of the
yes,
months were getting incorrectly excluded.
correct. So is that a known issue on our current version?
Yeah, I'm
Version
almost
6?
certain it must be. Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
I'm fairly confident. I can't say with certainty, but I believe so.
Yeah, because we tried running it because there is also a pipeline or plan to upgrade it into the version 8. So, but it's not it's not actually going to happen this month, maybe on the further months. So yeah, since we have this production issue, might as well as ask whether this is just an issue with the version 6 and it will be resolved on the latest version, which is version 8.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we could explore that in support specifically to ensure that it is, but there's definitely a customer who's on V6 who has hit similar issues with the last day of the month not being picked up correctly.
Yes, correct. I thought we're
And I don't
only the one who's encountering that issue.
see, and I don't think any of those were in version 6 at all. Let me just do a quick. Oh, that I believe that thing is reloaded. Do this date. Out of range. I know that in version 7 and 8, we fixed this. It's been somewhat recently. There you go.
Mm,
When using date
Mhm.
range filter report, records are not displayed for the last day of the selected date range.
Okay, so it's fixed on version 7.11.
Yes.
Okay, sure. Then I will just tell them that this issue is fixed on this version. Thank you
Okay.
so much for accommodating all my questions.
You bet, Jeremy. Happy to help anytime.
Yeah, sure. Thank you.
Okay.
That will be all for me.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. And Jeremy, or excuse not Jeremy, Radley, go ahead. What you got, man?
Hey, Will. All right, so I have a subflow which creates a PDF, right? Takes in a whole bunch of HTML, able to build it out. I've done a
Okay.
proof of concept on that. And I want to take the PDF that I'm creating, and I want to show it to the user in a document viewer in a form, which I'm able to do
Okay.
just fine.
Okay.
But then I want to save that document that I'm creating so that they can access it again if they go into the process folder and then go to the documents property and pull up that document.
Okay.
Or I want them to be able to access that document at a later date without having to go through a form. Just not sure what the right steps are to do that.
You want them to be able to access the document without going through a form?
Yeah, like if they come, and I don't know if it'd be easier if I showed you the process
I
folder.
can make it. You want to share
Yeah,
your screen? Yeah.
that'd be
Let me make you to panelists here.
Okay, you see my screen?
Yes, I do.
Awesome. So in the process folder here,
Mm-hmm.
my intention is to be able to have the user or the administrator of this process see that output at a whenever they want at a future date
Sure.
in this section down here. And I don't know if that's correct or if there's a better way to do that.
I would edit this page to get you something better. Like if you just search for process view page, you'll be able to make an edit to this. But I think I can get you what you're after here. But this is just a default process view page that you can edit like any other page.
Awesome. Or if there's a got a view completed form, if there's a way to or a right click option or some other menu item here to show show printable form or show report. I don't know how I want to phrase it, but something like that.
So do you have an example of a document in a folder? Are you specifically using documents? Like a decisions document? Like how are you adding it to the process folder today?
One, I don't know that I am, so maybe we'll start with that. So I have this request, and I think maybe even it was a couple weeks ago, you showed me how to use the end velocity. So I've done that. I've done proof of concept. I can create the PDF file. It shows up on the viewer. And maybe we just debug this really quick.
On the step we want to use here. I'd use a thing called a file reference entity, probably.
Okay.
Let me find out what that's actually called. Go ahead.
So very basic PDF I've created. I did the proof of concept, so I'll build this out completely. So now this PDF here, that's what I want to save.
Right. Yeah, so you need to do two things. You need to set it and you need to get it in the folder. Okay. And then you need to create an action so someone can see it. But you actually want to be in a document viewer, but just not the assigned form that they submitted, right? Like a separate action, a separate user, like a separate UI just specific to the document.
Well, I guess what are my options? Is it if they need to view the file in decisions, does it have to be in a document viewer in a form? It doesn't just.
Or do you want them to download it? You can download it too.
I'd rather just have them view it either in decisions or in a separate tab that's just showing the PDF.
Yeah, this is let me do this. I'll give you a quick example of what this could look like. Go exit this and go back into your studio.
Okay.
And then go to System Designer, CSS. Yeah, get out of the designer completely. Sorry,
Oh,
like actually
sorry.
into the portal. Where the heck is add file to folder?
System.
File to zip, out file references to folder. That's probably what we want. Okay. Yes, and then go to System Designer CSS.
Okay.
Now this is not exactly what you're talking about, but what you see on the right-hand side is actually decisions form with no user interface elements shown. It's just it's actually a document viewer. Like go to the internal, do it like row 4, one of the CSS ones.
Oh,
Yeah, like that's actually just a document viewer showing you the CSS file. I was like, since it can show
Oh, I
the
see.
text file. Now, and so what you can do is like you could have a new tab open with a form that doesn't have a button that shows, just is one big document viewer that someone could see, right?
Okay.
And you could have that be an action on one of your data types. So you have your options here are create a custom entity that has like a file data property to hold your new document. Now that shows up in the activity panel, and then you can write an entity action, which is a view in, a view document action that someone could right click and say view document.
Yeah.
That's an option. If you wanted to use decisions types like a file reference entity or document, you would kind of do the same thing. You'd put it in the folder, but then you would use like a configuration extension to add a custom action onto all documents or all file reference entities, and then possibly use action visibility rules to filter those things. So do you expect is this like a high, like, do you have a preference about saving these things in the database versus saving them on the file system for the rendered document, that is?
I don't think so. Is there one that you'd recommend?
Well, these aren't these large documents, or like these are,
No, they're
like,
2 pages tops. Like, these are gonna be
Yeah.
tiny things.
then I mean probably saving it into the database is fine. So might make sense. Like here, let me go ahead and walk back to my screen.
Okay.
And then I'll move you back to a attendee, and then I could talk you through what this could look like.
I guess before you do that, just one thing.
Sure.
I don't know if Manola's still on, but my example here is pretty close to what she was seeing. If you wanted to look at that at all.
Go ahead and show it. She's not, but we could send
Okay.
Caitlin. We could send her a note about having something similar when our recording is up with a timestamp, please.
Okay.
Right. So I have my initial form here. I have 3 options. The cancel request is hidden on the initial form, but it still asked me to have the outcome path. So regardless of the outcome path, I set up the process folder, and then I evaluate the outcome path later to decide what I want to do with it. So my save for later, I have an entity state that I set, and then this draft form is assigned to the current user, except they'd be the only ones getting it, and they can do save for later as many times as they want. Still sets it back to draft. As soon as they click submit, that's when it moves on. And then the modify form is if it goes, goes to the approvers and it comes back, it goes to modify form. And if the person again says save for later, it goes back in the draft and loops through there. So that's kind of how I was managing that scenario. I was setting up the process folder immediately, regardless of the outcome, and then evaluating that later.
Yeah, no, that makes sense too.
Okay.
Yeah, no, that's really helpful. Thank you.
Sure. Okay.
Okay, and in fact, it probably doesn't matter. If you just want to stop your share, I'll just get my share going here. All right, you see my screen?
I do.
All right. Like a file act. And then here, let me just get myself set up. So I'm going to create a flow. To form, and I'm going to set up a process folder, and then I'm going to search for add. Actually, it's better here. I don't know what's better. Let me create an entity. Probably, I think this a custom entity to hold this is fine. Create data type integration, user defined types, entity, and this will be called like my, request document holder or something. Can put like file name or whatever else I want thing. And then I'll do file data. This type, I'll make this a file data. Okay, back to my flow. So let me set up my form here. And on my form, I'm just going to upload a document to make this easier. So create form, create. And I'll do a file upload. This will be my doc. Name it doc and a button. I'm going to go to my process folder here, put it in the file action example. Just do some garbage text for these other things. That's good. And then I'm going to find user defined type entities, request document. I'm going to add a create step here. And the folder ID is going to be from my process folder. And the item to create will be build data. My entity name, this is probably your document name, right? But I'll just do a constant here, which is, the file uploaded. And then document data, I'm going to select from flow and I'm going to get that from my file upload control. So this is all kind of regular stuff, no big deal. I run this. Let me select a file. And I'll select here you go, there's a profiler. Run this, boom, it's in there. So now if I come back into my portal, I should see my new folder. So there's WF01. If I click into this now, I can see the file uploaded here. This is my entity, right? So what I can do is I can come to that entity configuration. I can do user action, create user action, and I'll say view document. And then here I could say show form, and I could pick a form, create a new form, create. And then on here, I will search for document. I will delete this. I'll show a document viewer. And then I'll just put like a close button. This is our simple example. So that's our close button. And document viewer input type, I'm going to change to file data. This will be called doc to display. Okay. And then here, what I can do is doc to display. It will be select from flow. Now this is an entity action, so it has the entity available, the data available to it, and I can pass document data in. So if I'm right, I can save this. I can go back to my folder. I can go into this, and I can click view document, which will give me my profiler and a document viewer here. And of course, if I wanted to, I could make this open a new tab, and be full screened. Is this kind of what you're after?
I think that's it, man. Yep.
Yeah, and so I'm just leveraging a custom entity so that it shows up in the activity panel here, and an entity action to give me the custom action. So this, if you're doing lots of data or big documents, I wouldn't use this file data approach where we added, file data to the database.
Yeah.
But like if it's a small doc, no big deal. This is fine. It's just not it's not the world's most performant pattern if we're talking about huge, like lots of scale here. No. But usually for like user submitted requests, this is not going to be a problem. Awesome. And then you'd save yourself the headache of trying to write all sorts of visibility rules off one of our default types to make sure it only shows for certain situations.
Yeah. Sweet. Thanks, Will. Appreciate that.
You bet, man. Happy to help. Who else we got here? Okay. Anybody else got questions for us today? I think I saw a couple of newer people join here. Oh, we're almost at an hour. Wonderful. If you guys got any questions, please let me know.
Hey, Will, I got another simple one if there's nothing else in the queue.
Yeah, nothing else is. Go ahead, man.
Okay. So on the on a form, right? I'm providing a bunch of instructions to the user on the form, and I'm just using I think I'm using a label. Is there a way to make the box grow to fit the contents? I didn't find one. I saw grow and resize.
Like you have a dynamic like instruction
Right.
text being passed in.
Yeah. Instead of having try, okay, is 100 big enough? Okay, let me try 125, 150, whatever.
Yeah, either I with this new, not for the regular forms you're probably using, but I think we do have a form. It's kind of newer, which is this simple form, and these can shrink and grow a lot more dynamically, but are more limited in terms of what designs they can do for you. So you might look at a simple form to get that, but the default, like our normal form, doesn't. The container doesn't know anything about the contents, and so it doesn't shrink and grow in any way.
Fair enough. Okay, cool. Thanks, man.
Yep, you bet. Okay, last call here. Anyone got anything? Alrighty. Okay, awesome. Thanks for a solid Monday lunch and learning, everybody. Great questions. I will be back tomorrow as well. So we'll be here all week as always, Monday through Thursday at noon Eastern. Appreciate everyone and have a great afternoon or great evening.
Thanks, Will.
Thanks everyone. See ya.